Welcome into another edition of Full Court Press live on location here. Woo! Look at there. They're breaking down the court behind us here in Providence, Rhode Island. And man, Ty Richardson from ESPN Arkansas and myself are very excited to be joining you today because we're talking about some wins. We're talking about the Hogs heading to the Sweet 16, punching their ticket by beating number 2 seed St. John's in the West region, 75-66 that final score. And Ty, I love what the Razorbacks have been doing these past couple of games. It's been a full team effort. In that win over Kansas, it was the old guys. In this win over St. John's, it was the young guys, the freshman three, as they like to call themselves in the locker room. Boogie Fland, Carter Knox, Billy Richmond. Billy Richmond leading the team with 16 points. You had Carter Knox adding 15. And look, Boogie Fland was quiet on the stat sheet, but he made some major plays in this ball game. He had that huge bucket to end the first half. He had a huge steal in the second half on that St. John's inbound play. Again, playmakers all throughout this roster, but what excited you about seeing those three in that win?
Well, you just kind of alluded to it there. I thought ESPN's Paul Biancardi had a really good take after the game, how Boogie and DJ affect games, not scoring. The defense that you mentioned, the tenacity, the endless pursuit to the rim. If you watch that game and then you look at the box score and you say, oh, Boogie, DJ didn't have the best of games. But in reality, those two were huge. They had massive games for the Arkansas Razorback to help you get the win against the Red Storm in this one. And as far as those two freshmen, we got to talk with Billy and Carter after the game in the press conference. And Carter, when he, just seeing that smile, and Billy's a little more reserved, but Carter, it's really funny to just see how happy he gets after the games because they've never experienced this. Trevin Brazil, for all the college basketball he's played, he's never actually played on the floor. So this is something that they'll remember the rest of their lives. And I think a lot of Arkansas fans will remember how this game went down against Rick Pitino and the St. John's Red Storm.
That was a historic matchup.
Oh, unbelievable.
So it's going to go down in history as one of the best, if not, one of the best in Arkansas Razorback history to punch their ticket to the Sweet 16. We talked a little bit about some of the key players of this one, those freshmen. But I want to mention how physical this game was as well. It was a battle from the start to the finish. We saw it, especially with the refs. They were not only battling St. John's, they were battling the refs in this one, Ty. And I can say that, you can say that, I know the team can't say that, but there were some baffling calls.
We don't get fined. We don't get fined.
We don't get fined, exactly.
No.
But there's some baffling calls in this one. But I just love the tenacity of this team. You battle St. John's, you battle the refs, you battle the physicality, and you had multiple players playing in foul trouble in this one. Big Z fouled out in this game. You had DJ Wagner, Nelly Davis, Jonas Adu playing on 4 fouls for a lot of that second half. I mean, that's got to be something impressive. If you don't think it is, you should.
Carter and Billy were having to play the 4 at times, which is not their natural position. Billy's had to play out of position all year, assuming that backup point guard role when Boogie went out. So, again, going back to what Billy said in the post-game press conference, how they've sacrificed certain egos and whatnot, some of the calls like that I think about, Trevin Brazil gets hit on the head after a layup, and then there's a 50-50 call on the other hand that he gets whistled for, just one of the ones during that game. And you're talking about this being just how monumental this game was. Arkansas and Kansas was the highest-rated first-round game ever. I'm really curious, Courtney, when these ratings come out, how crazy of a game, a matchup, because like you said, it went back and forth. I know Arkansas pulled away by 9 at the end, but this was a highly competitive game throughout, which Arkansas held the lead for, I think, all but 3 or 4 minutes.
Yeah.
And then they pulled it out at the tail end.
Well, St. John's came back in that second half. I think everyone in this arena who was an Arkansas Razorback fan held their breath because they cut it to 2 in that second half down the stretch. That was what impressed me most. If I have to pick something out of this game, that was what impressed me most. Because how many times, Ty, have we seen this season where games have gone in Arkansas's favor in the first half, they're playing great, and you're going, man, they've got this. In the second half, they play poorly and lose the matchup. That didn't happen here today. It wasn't the same movie that we had seen before.
Oh, we've seen this before.
Exactly, but that impressed me because it's like you guys had this in you all year long, and this is the time when it counts. No one's talking about those losses in the regular season anymore. You know what they're talking about? March
March
Madness.
Madness. John L. Davis, for example, he had a few good games this season, but nowhere near the consistency that he was playing in on the FAU Owls. And then in his 2 postseason games, he shoots above 50%. He's 5 of 10 from the field today and knocked down some big time shots. So you've got his defense, you've got his leadership, you've got his toughness all year long, and now he's knocking down shots. And like you said, to make the connection with March, he has shown, like, some guys wilt, some guys break under the pressure during March Madness. He's risen to the occasion, not just in FAU, but now at Arkansas in these first 2 games. So I think there's a lot of encouraging things for Arkansas fans to be positive about as they make their way out west for this game in San Francisco Thursday.
I keep joking with Trevin in the locker room. Tournament Trevin, I'm going to make it a thing. I'm going to make it a thing, okay?
Instead of TB, TT.
TT,
Yeah,
exactly.
TT.
I'm going to make it a thing. But
Tournament
honestly,
Trev, yeah.
honestly, I should say every one of these guys deserves Tournament Nelly, Tournament Billy, Tournament Boogie. All of them deserve that title because it has been team efforts here. I want to talk about the defensive tenacity as well of Arkansas in this matchup, because I know Coach Cal said after the game they can't shoot 2 of 19 from the 3 and expect to win, but how they won in this game was just defense. I mean, they held St. John's to 28% shooting. That's impressive. I know St. John's hasn't been awesome on offense this year and have been up and down, but that has some credit to this team and what they've leaned on all year long.
And you kind of alluded to, Courtney, when St. John's began to came back and 90% of the building was getting hyped up during this game, probably had 10%, 90 split. Arkansas weathered the storm and was able to, at the tail, the last 2 or 3 minutes, I mean, St. John's could do anything. And Arkansas knocked down their free throws and closed out the game. In these little small moments in the postseason when they really need to beat the clamps on it, and they've been a good defensive team for a good chunk of SEC play, but you think about instances against the Jayhawks where Kansas was up by 3, or this game where St. John's was doing everything they could, scrapping, clawing to get back in. Arkansas just refused to let them get anything going offensively, and that's a testament to Cal always gives credit to his staff. I got to give credit to Coach Martin, Coach Coleman, a lot of those guys, because they had a great game plan for St. John today, and the players executed it to perfection.
Absolutely. So now we're going to talk a little bit about where they go from here, and that's the Sweet 16 in San Francisco. How do you see this team moving on and getting more wins and possibly, I hate to even bring this up, but possibly even making it to the Final Four?
Yeah, San Antonio, Texas is not too far from Fayetteville in terms of where other destinations have been over the years. So I think fans can start to look ahead to that possibilities. But as far as the players are concerned, they're locked into this game come Thursday. And San Francisco, again, a place that we've talked about. Arkansas was there just a mere 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Before you were
No, I was here. I was here. Yes.
Okay,
yeah,
I couldn't
I was
remember.
Here, yeah.
I could. So that's one of those things where Arkansas fans saw this team defeat a #1 seed, #1 overall seed in Gonzaga. You're going to be, I guess, in that same arena. Is it Chase Center? I think it's the Chase Center.
Yeah.
So it's a unique perspective in that. One of the things that Chuck was talking about after the game is for the last 5 years, Arkansas has ended up in the Sweet 16, which is remarkable. Obviously, first year under Cal, 3 of the 4 years under Muss. You think about that, like that time, just that success rate. I know that Coach Richardson had the highest rate of success from like 1990 to 1996, but that's a pretty high level of success for Arkansas basketball when you think about wins over Gonzaga. You think about beating Kansas, not just earlier here this week, but also in that. So Arkansas fans are getting their basketball juju back when it comes to this basketball team. Haven't reached a Final Four just yet. And I know you and I can look ahead, but hopefully this team is locked in for this game come Thursday.
I like their chances. I hate to say that, but I believed in this team, not after that 0-5 start, right? I will say, I'll admit it right here. Both of us are admitting it. See, hands up. We did not believe in this team then. But I'll say now, having watched this team, even in the SEC tournament, even after they lost to Ole Miss, I said, this team has something. I see it. We're seeing it. And I even said on the Pick Trail show, I said I was the only one who picked Arkansas to beat Kansas. And I said, I believe in them.
I picked against them. I picked it against them, against Kansas, just to be honest.
Okay,
so
all right, okay.
I'll release that. I picked them in 2 brackets, and I picked Kansas in both of them. So I'm just being honest.
All right, that's fine. Well, again, I was the only one who picked Arkansas, so I guess I can say that here as well. because I just saw something in this team.
Yeah.
And when we talked to the players in the postgame, not even in the postgame, but after the locker room and after, the game was over, something that they said to me really resonated. They said, we couldn't have done this without that 0-5 start in SEC play.
That's a unique perspective.
I know, then I started to think about it, and I said, you're right. No other team in the country had to deal with that and is in this at this point right now. They did. They dealt with that. They had to get through that. Coach Cal even said every single guy in this team was going through something.
Yep.
And they had to get through that.
Golf carts, foot surgery, you name
injuries,
it.
all this thing, playing with, being down multiple men, and even with all of that, they got to the point where it mattered the most. And to me, that's just something unique about this team. When you look back at the history of Arkansas men's basketball, this team, no matter how far they go, just getting to the Sweet 16 is incredible.
Yeah. No, I don't think there's any question about that. And that thought kind of sparked another one for me. When you think about just how this season has gone, and Cal kind of, again, alluded to it as well after the game, I just think that like these guys are not used to losing, right? Like that's been they've won, whether in high school or John L. at FAU or Jonas at Tennessee. I mean, they're used to having a high level of success, and they hated it just as much as any fan did. And they did what it took to get back to that point, which is where we're heading now, to San Francisco, California. It's a remarkable run, and I don't think anyone could predict it. And I think another element of this, we talked about the possibility of them ending up in Lexington and 95% of the arena cheering against them. Courtney, that was basically today. You could argue that this was just as tough as an environment, 3 hours from New York, as it would have been to go to Lexington. So that's another element they had to overcome today.
I was at that Kentucky game, right?
Yeah.
And so I know, while I wouldn't compare the crowd, that Kentucky crowd was crazy.
Versus
yeah,
whatever
that
this
crowd
holds.
was crazy. But I did ask the players again about that. I said, you guys have dealt with this. This was nothing to you guys. And they said that's, again, one of the reasons we think we're more prepared to make a run than some of the other teams in this tournament, because we've dealt with crazy environments like this. That was nothing for us. That the crowd was nothing. It was just, another day at the office. Here we go. A bunch of people cheering against us. They were just happy to be here, to be playing in this tournament. It is a brand new season. What matters? This doesn't matter. The SEC tournament. Sorry, I know people don't like when I say that. It doesn't matter. This is what matters. Everybody in the country right now is talking about this tournament. Who's making it to the Sweet 16? And so to me, I'm like, man, there isn't a team right now that you can point out and go, they've been through exactly what Arkansas has gone through. And so that's why I like their chances. I'm going to keep going back to that. This team has something special. It really does.
It's really hard to fully articulate how down this team was, not just collectively, but individually with several points. I mean, Jonas just talked about getting healthy.
And he just recently got healthy.
Yeah.
I mean, he just recently started feeling 100%. Just let that sink in, everybody.
I think that's important. And we're seeing what a fully healthy Jonas Adu can do. I know he didn't necessarily have his best game today, but he was in foul trouble for the majority of it. So I think there's a lot of, if you're an Arkansas fan right now, you should have a lot of confidence, whether you travel, you watch the game, you listen to it on the radio. You should have a lot of confidence that they have a chance to move on to the Elite Eight. Now, past that, we'll have to kind of wait and see what the matchup is and everything else. But Arkansas fans are on cloud nine right now, and I don't expect them to jump off anytime soon.
I think I'm on cloud nine, too. I love March. And I love when teams keep playing in March. And the team, when you get to cover a team like Arkansas and they get to keep going, it's just exciting for us to be a part of it. That matchup, we're going to find out who they face between Texas Tech and Drake. That matchup taking place Sunday at, I forgot the time. Do you know it off the top of your head?
They're actually playing right now.
Oh, they're playing right now. Sorry about that.
No, so they're actually playing right now as we're recording this. But
okay.
So yeah, we will find out. I do know they played. Chuck alluded to it on the radio broadcast. They will play on Thursday. It's just a matter of who they'll end up playing. We'll
find out very soon. So if you're watching this, you might already know, and that's okay. You can let us know in the comments how you feel about Arkansas' Sweet 16 matchup. But that's going to do it on this episode of Full Court Press. Thank you so much for joining me, Ty.
Courtney.
That was so much fun. Hopefully we get to do a couple more
Oh,
of these,
hopefully,
right?
yeah.
Hopefully.
Maybe in San Fran and San Antonio.
Fingers crossed.
We'll see.
Fingers crossed. All right. See you guys next time on the show.